What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down some of Tua Tagovailoa's throwing mechanics. We're going to be talking about how you guys can have a quicker motion, how you guys can have a more accurate ball downfield, how you guys can be a more accurate passer, and also how you guys can get better throwing on the run, okay? So I think he's an interesting guy to study for sure. Got a lightning fast release, and he throws this thing with a lot of velocity, so I hope this video gives you guys some value and you learn something from this about the quarterback position. And guys, if you're a quarterback and you want to get better reading coverages, knowing, understanding defenses, and you want access to breakdowns just like this, but it's all defense related, right? 200 plus breakdowns where I take you through step by step of what to do when you're seeing a certain defense, how to read the defense, and plays that beat that specific defense, plus 4 new videos every single week. Check out that link in the description below that says learn how to read defenses. That will teach you all about reading defenses if you sign up on my website. Hope to get you guys on that soon. Let's get started. So, first things first here is we're going to be talking about just overall his mechanics and just his hip drive and his hips being able to come through before this football and how he's able to generate so much torque on this ball, okay? So let's watch this thing full speed again when he throws. So again, like I said in the beginning, a lightning fast release. So when we break this thing down slow-mo, we're going to talk about what makes it so fast, why is this just has an efficient motion, right? Especially for lefties. Lefties always have a clean release. It's just, I don't know what it is, but it's just something about a lefty throwing the football that they all throw kind of similar, but they all have a very clean release. So when he's holding this ball, first things first, you see how relaxed he is with his elbows, right? When he's holding this thing in the middle of his chest, right? This is a ball carriage. A lot of people teach to hold it by that ear, and the reason why I don't teach that and the reason why I don't like that at all is because when you hold it up by your ear, your elbows tense up and your traps get real tense, right? You want to make sure that you're in a relaxed position, because if you're relaxed with your upper half, that's more force you can create from your lower half and your hips, right? And that's the whole goal of this thing. So now you see when he takes this ball back, he goes straight from that position. He doesn't load up on this back leg. He doesn't lean back right here. It's just he has a quick stroke where he can just get this thing out right now. It's just quick, and he gets that front foot down. You can see how that front foot stays in the ground solid. The faster you can get that front foot down, the faster it allows for the motion to happen. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a quick motion, but if you have good hip drive, it does mean that you have a quick motion, because if you get this down fast, the quicker the process is of your hip drive, that hip and shoulder dissociation, all that stuff that ties into torque, right? And for what I mean by hip and shoulder dissociation, for those of you guys that haven't been watching my videos, that's necessarily when your shoulders go back and your hips go forward. It's broken down simple, right? Not where your shoulders rotate too far back, but you keep that front shoulder kind of quiet, you keep it on the target, you have that backstroke, and your hips are starting to rotate through. That's that hip and shoulder dissociation, right? So now, when I keep that front shoulder closed and my front foot is down, it allows for there to be a lot of power produced on this throw from my hip drive, right? So the goal is you want to get your hips through before the football, and that's exactly what Tua does, and you want to maintain a quiet front arm. You don't want to let your front elbow swing down. You want to let your front shoulders swing open. You want to stay quiet with that front arm. You want to let your hips make the throw, and that's what brings this football through, right? So you see how he's here? Front foot stays solid. Now, again, let me mention that front foot again one more time. When you drive off of this back leg, that creates the foot strike, right? With Tua, he's driving off of his left leg to get his right leg in the ground, and he's pushing. And when you get that right leg in the ground, it's solid, it's firm, it's got a slight bend to it, and you can drive with your hips, and you maintain that same level where your butt's at right here. You stay at that same platform, and you rotate. That's going to be a lot of pop for you. That's going to be a lot of power on this thing. So again, he's got a slight bend to that front knee, and he maintains that bend throughout the throw. That's how you keep that ground force. It's all about producing ground force and torque. So keeping a bend on that front leg and letting your hips do the work, that hip-shoulder dissociation doing the work, that's going to give you a lot more power on this thing, right? And so now, when we talk about hip drive, it's just about as much driving your back hip through as opening up your front hip. You want to try to get your hips parallel to the target, and you see how Tua is rotating his hips. His back hip is coming through before the football. They call it chasing the hip, right? You want the ball to chase your back hip, and at the same time, you keep that front hand somewhere in front of your face like you're eating a sandwich. That's how I think of it, right? Like I'm eating a sandwich with my front hand. I want to keep that hand right there. You see guys like Tom Brady, they almost keep that front hand on their opposite collarbone, right? Now, again, and I want to make this clear too, every single quarterback throws the ball different. There's not a single quarterback in the NFL that throws it the exact same as one another. However, the key points is what I'm trying to point out, right? Keeping a slight bend on this front leg to keep ground force, driving with your hips and getting your hip through before the ball, keeping that front hand somewhere in front of your face, and to his release point, how he stays pretty much relatively square, we're going to talk about that in a second, is very similar to a lot of the elite passers in the league, right? And you just want to make those comparisons so you can take that home in your own game, right? You don't want to be like, oh, I want to throw the ball just like Tua. Everybody has their own motion, but you guys can take away some of the key things that you see a lot of similarities with all of the elite quarterbacks and just most of the, because honestly, in my opinion, when it comes to just regular thinking, like anybody who makes it to this type of a level is obviously a very talented thrower of the football. So trying to take away the key things that you see a lot of those elite passers do is how you guys can improve your own game, okay? And again, you see when he rotates through, how level he keeps his head. That's something that a lot of people don't stress. You want to try to keep your eyes level. Like you're at the beach and you see that horizon line going straight across. You want to kind of keep your eyes on that horizon line. That's like the terminology that I use with my quarterbacks. Let's watch it again, full speed one more time. Nice and relaxed elbows, hips coming through. Let's focus on staying square. So now we're going to be looking at this goal line fade here. We're going to talk about how you guys can be a little bit more accurate with that front hand staying tight to your body and your shoulders staying on a level plane and getting your hips level to the target. So you see how he throws this thing? Perfect ball, giving his guy a chance over the top on this jump ball in the corner of the end zone, or not the corner of the end zone, but in the end zone. Now let's talk about his form here. So when he lets go of this thing, we already talked about that front foot getting down, right? And that front foot getting down quick, it ties into that sequence where your front foot's down, your hips are coming through, your shoulders stay back, or your shoulder stays quiet, and your hips are bringing this ball around. That's the key. But now, how do I have a more accurate release point? I get this question asked at least probably 20 times a week. How can I be more accurate, right? How can I be more accurate? How can I stop missing throws high? How can I stop missing throws to the left? How can I stop leading my throws? It all ties into this front side discipline, and obviously your wrist flick. And there's some other things that go into it, obviously, but those are the main factors, right? So now when Tua rotates through here, you see how when he's coming through, it's his hips opening up, right? His hips are bringing this thing through. His back hip is coming through before this football. That's where we get to that nice, like the experts, quote unquote, call it the position of zero, right? I don't really call it that because I really don't even necessarily know what that means if I'm just breaking that down simple. It's just where your hips are coming through before the ball, right? Your hips come through before the ball. You don't have that ball dip behind your head. You're not lifting it straight to 90 and having it dip behind your head. You're in this nice, powerful position where your hips are coming through and that ball is trailing, okay? So now, how I can get a more accurate release point is by keeping this front hand by my face, and when you finish, you want to try to stay square. You see, I could draw a square with Tua's body. That's the goal right here, right? Because if you guys were to swing that front elbow down, which means that you would drop that hand, what would happen is your body's split down a midline. So whatever your front side does, your throwing side's going to do pretty much the same thing, right? So if I swing my elbow down and I go this way, my front side leans, what's my arm going to do? It's going to get pushed up the opposite direction. I'm going to be here because my body's split down that midline. Whatever the left side does, right side's going to do something similar, right? So then I'm going to have a real high release. And if I release it early, I'm going to miss high. If I release it late, I'm going to miss low and come down like a pitcher. Now, another thing is when you're here and you don't stay square, like see how Tua finishes and he's square right here? Let's say he were to swing his shoulder around and he would finish with his right shoulder like pointing behind him, right? Like how we were all taught. We were all taught you want to start with your front shoulder on the target, then finish with your back shoulder, and you rotate all the way through with your front shoulder. That's incorrect, right? Because what's going to happen is if you swing this shoulder way around and you swing this way, what's going to happen? Because your body's split down the midline, your arm's going to come across, and that's how you miss left to right, because now you're side arming it. So you don't want to open up too quick because that makes your arm almost come around, and we have that kind of side arm action. If I can stay square right here, as square with my shoulders, and then square with my hips, it's wherever I flick that wrist, wherever I emphasize that wrist flick. I call it trusting your hands. You want to trust your hands at that throw because that's where your accuracy comes from. If you're disciplined with your front side, disciplined with your shoulders, and you trust your hands, that's how I become a more accurate passer. Let's watch this thing again real quick, full speed. So coming through, hand by his face, make sure we stay square, and you want to emphasize that wrist flick. Almost like you're throwing darts, but you're turning that thumb over. This is a great ball here by Tua. Now we're going to be taking a look at a throw by him on the run. So now let's watch this thing full speed. So he's coming out here, and you see again, stay square. Same principles pretty much apply on the run, right? So now, when we're throwing here and we're on the run, and it's like an escape situation where maybe your hips are going towards the sideline. Not a basic sprint out where you could square up the target. My bad. Excuse me. Not a basic situation where you could run at the target, where you got to escape, get out of the pocket, your hips going towards the sideline, and right now on a dime, you got to throw and hit this thing coming back across your face. Your throwing side leg is super important. Your hips are super important. Your right leg, and in this case, Tua's right leg. If you're a righty, it's your left leg. Your opposite leg kicking through, and your upper half, very similar. The upper half is pretty much the same as just a normal throw that we were just talking about. So we're mainly going to focus on the lower half. So to bring your hips, you want to bring your hips parallel to the throw. When I'm getting out here, I want to step with my throwing side foot and step in the direction of the throw. So you see how Tua is here and he steps in the direction of the throw, cutting this guy off. As we step with my throwing side leg, that's when I want to start this backstroke and take this thing back. And you see how Tua gets to this kind of like L angle right here. I'm not saying you have to get to a perfect L every single time. I'm just saying I need some kind kind of a backstroke, right? So as I step, I get to that backstroke. Now I'm in that backstroke. When you're here and your front shoulders closed, swinging your right leg, in this case, your opposite leg, so your throwing side leg, your opposite leg, so not your throwing side leg, the opposite of your throwing side leg. In this case, Tua's right leg, swinging your opposite leg through and keeping your shoulders parallel to the target and your hips parallel to the target, or parallel to the plane that you're trying to throw on at the target, is going to give you more torque. So you see how when Tua's here, he steps, and you want to swing this opposite leg through like you got something on the point of your toe, like you got some mud on your toe and you're trying to kick it at somebody, or you're wearing like a sandal and you're trying to kick a sandal at somebody. You're trying to kick your foot at the target, because that brings your hips there. I can't tell you how many times I've seen quarterbacks step with this throwing side leg. They have the great sequence right here now, shoulders back right here, and they step with this leg, shoulders back, and then their opposite foot kicks towards the sideline, because that opposite foot, wherever it kicks, that's where your hips are going to go, and then you start throwing across your body. So if you could step as you close your shoulders and then kick that leg at the target, you see how that brings to his hips there, and now his shoulders are level, and now he keeps that hand tight to his frame. Now I have a clean release point. You see how it's wherever he flicks that wrist. That's what we're trying to get to. That's what you got to be able to do. You got to bring your hips to the target, shoulders to the target. Don't swing open with your shoulders to bring your hips. Close that front shoulder as you step with the throwing side leg, close that shoulder, and swing the opposite leg through and stay square on the finish. Trust those hands, because especially when you're on the run, you have momentum, so trust that momentum. Use that torque of that step, closing that shoulder, swinging that leg through, and then trust your hands on that follow through. That's how you can be more consistent on the run. Let's watch this thing again, full speed, one more time. Great job here by Tua. Let's watch it again. So stepping at the target, bring those shoulders and hips there. After you release the ball, if you want to fade out, that's fine, but make sure at release point, I am square. All right, guys, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Again, if you guys have any questions, please leave those in the comments section. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. And also, guys, if you want to get better reading coverages, it's like the Netflix of just for quarterbacks, right? Being able to read coverages, knowing every single coverage, 200 videos plus 4 new videos every week. By the end of the year, we should be at 300 videos that you guys can watch every single day, plus 4 new videos every week. Check out that link in the description. Improve your reading coverages ability. Learn how to read defenses. I'll see you guys next time.